Ellerslie.
Mr. Speaker, leaders of religious communities were excited to hear about the new Stage 2 recommendations of the Chief Medical Officer of Health as they relate to places of worship. However, when they consulted the document labeled COVID-19 Guidance for Places of Worship, last updated on June 19, 2020, there was a little bit of confusion. So with that in mind, I would like the Minister of Health to clarify. Is it indeed the case that there is no longer a restriction cap on religious services as long as community members attending religious services maintain their 2-meter physical distancing rules?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question. Yes, that is true for worship services in a place of worship. So if, for example, there was a wedding or if there was a funeral in a place of worship, then the seated indoor capacity limit would apply in that situation. But for indoor worship services in a place of worship, as long as folks are still maintaining their physical distancing and other precautions are taken, then yes, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Ellerslie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for that answer. Given that religious leaders would also like clarification on the number of attendees for school graduations, sporting events, and weddings, both indoors and outdoors, and given that these leaders want to be helpful in sharing the information quickly about the new measures in the communities that they lead, and given that June is an important month for many public gatherings, namely graduations, can the Minister please clarify how many community members may attend each of these events?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So graduation, it would depend on whether it's indoor or outdoor then. So if it is indoor seated, the indoor seated capacity limit would apply, which would be 50, Mr. Speaker. If for some reason it was good weather and the graduation ceremony wanted to occur outside for outdoor seated, it would be a cap of 100, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member.
Thank you. Given that several ethno-religious communities provide food services at their places of worship, for example, the Sikh community, and given that many communities have helped as best as they can within the former COVID-19 guidelines, and they want to potentially do even more as the rules are relaxed, can the Minister provide a clarification if ethno-religious communities may proceed with food service and whether the government would be willing to provide PPE such as masks, gloves, and hand sanitizers so that they are able to provide good service?
The Minister of Health.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And yes, as long as folks, and thank you to the member for recognizing our faith communities for being an important part of our response to the pandemic. So as long as folks are still complying with the remainder of the recommendations and the guidance of the Chief Medical Officer of Health that remain in place, Mr. Speaker, as we enter Stage 2 relaunch, the ability for the faith communities to be able to provide, continue to provide, as they've been an important part of the pandemic response, Mr. Speaker, they will be able to continue to do so.